Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and today we welcome to the studio Ruzana Glaeser, founder of Bright Meets Brave. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. And today we are talking all about equal pay for women.
Yes.
But most importantly, just knowing how to negotiate and that you have it in you. And we're going to kind of get into like how women like to fight for others. And
Yes.
Forget sometimes that we can really fight for ourselves.
We're all about community, and we're all about nurturing others and supporting others.
I would love for you to start by telling people about you and kind of how you got to where you are in your journey. And then we'll kind of get into the topic at hand. But it's nice to have some context of who you are, where you come from.
Right. Well, that's a loaded question.
Come from nowhere. So
right. I actually come from Russia. I grew up in Russia. I moved here when I was 16, and I got finished high school, finished college here, and then got into business. So I am a sourcing professional by trade, right? So what I do is I negotiate with suppliers on behalf of my company. So I negotiate for better costs, better terms, deliveries, better value. And so how this kind of all came about is about 10 years ago, right? I'm negotiating on behalf of my company, and I'm very successful. I'm very confident, and I go in and I know what I want.
You're saving so many dollars,
millions of dollars, right? And then when I decided to go and ask on my own behalf, because I found out that my coworker was making more than I was, I didn't have that confidence, right? Like I had sat down and I was very uncomfortable. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know like how to ask or how much to ask. So I have
to ask, was it a male coworker?
It was a male coworker. Mm-hmm. I think we've all been there. So that kind of that started me on my journey of how, I did a lot of research, and it actually appears that women are very successful at negotiating on behalf of others. But then when it comes to negotiating on our own behalf, we stumble. So that kind of led me into doing a lot of research into figuring out why and how do we overcome the obstacle? How can we help each other to get there?
Well, that's absolutely awesome. And I am so excited to start talking about this today. I mean, this is something that I like to say is one of my superpowers. Yeah. And I think we all have it in there as women. But I think I've learned that putting it out there at the beginning, or if you're already at a job and you've kind of gotten to a point where you have some different needs, but really putting out there exactly what you need works.
Yeah, and as I totally agree with you, I think what women struggle is that exactly what you need part, like getting to that, because
it takes time. It absolutely takes, and your life is different at different stages.
For sure.
So, mommy of 2 elementary school kids now, very different than when I was mommy of infants and kids in daycare.
Or not mommy, right?
Or not mommy. And I think right now, this most recent role that I've been there 2 years, but I went to the table. They kind of came to me, so that helps a little bit. Yeah. But I went to the table saying, hey, I'm also a professional wardrobe stylist. I don't want to give up that side of my life. Is there a way to make that work? Also, like, I have 2 children, and there are times in the daytime that I want to be at their place, and I want to, like, just be very full circle and very open. And I think it was the first time they'd ever had someone in an interview, like, interview them and kind of say, I don't know, but we should be. We should be before we take on a role. We should be saying, can you support me in the ways I need to be supported?
Right.
And if not...
Now, not tomorrow or not a year from now.
But now. If the company isn't set up that way and the infrastructure isn't there and they're not willing to make those contentions for you as a person to come on, don't accept the role.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, if it's not there, a lot of women have the fear, right, like of backlash. And backlash comes in a couple of what senses. It could be social, like, oh, they're going to think I'm difficult to work with, right? Or it could be economical, right? Where they just kind of retaliate, which is illegal. But I think part of it is if they're not going to come and meet you where you need to be, you're just going to have resentment later on.
Exactly.
You're still going to want that. You're still going to need that.
Or guilt. Or that guilt or animosity. And I think we as women put too much guilt in our backpack. And that is just one of those things that if you go in asking, it's much easier than taking a sick day to go see your kid at a school play. You shouldn't have to take sick time to go do that or pretend you're sick to spend time with your family. Like, I when I hear that, it just makes me hurt.
Cringe, right?
You can ask for what you need. And I think the same comes for pay. And I've never accepted a first offer.
Yep.
But
good for you. That's unusual.
Countless women have.
Yes.
And I think it comes from when I first got out of college, my first job was kind of made for me. Like, I went and thought I was applying to be a apartment manager at an apartment complex because A, I got free rent, and B, I was like, well, I can do this while I find something in the creative realm that I want. And I ended up talking to this woman. She's like, you're not right for this job, but our investor is working on an arts project. He's in next week. Meet with him. Yeah. Maybe there's something there. And this position was created for me. And so I learned that companies can create positions for people.
Sure. Yep.
In my very first job.
Yeah.
And I do think that gave me this launch board into when I go into other roles. Hey, this can be customized. This can be created. Well, I've been through it before. I've worked with companies on how to do it. As long as I'm respectful and don't take advantage, and as long as you're respectful and don't take advantage, like, this can be a good thing.
That brings up a super valid point. You said, companies can create positions, and, well, actually a couple points, but the first one is that happens at the beginning, right? Like, you have to have an honest conversation of what it is you need, what the company can provide, and that has to happen at that point rather than you getting a job and then kind of like, well, actually, I was thinking about this, right? I think that conversation is the best at the beginning. And the same thing with negotiations, right? With a lot of women, one of the differences between men and women is men actually think that I'm going to prove my value at the time of the offer, right? Mm-hmm. And women, a lot of times, they'll get the offer and they might not be happy with it. And they're like, well, let me get in there. Let me prove my worth. Let me show them.
I'll show them.
Yeah. But the thing is, the most leverage you're ever going to have and the most flexibility the company's going to have is at that beginning point, right? Like, when you realize that, well, this isn't quite aligned. Is there another way, or is there another position that you would be better suited for?
And at those transition points, too. I think in between roles, when you're leaving one role to another role, you've learned what you like and dislike about the role you previously had. And you also have learned your worth a little bit.
Yes.
So, I mean, I've never gone into another role not asking for at least 25% more than I was making before. I mean, it's a starting point. They can say no. They can say, this is the best we can do.
Right.
But what you post in a job or what you first offer me is not the best you can do. That is the most economical sourcing way for the company to save money. But
I think the other thing, too, to know as a hiring manager, I've been exposed to that. We're never making a first offer as our top number.
No, it's absolutely not. No.
And I have a lot more leverage in the beginning when I want to attract the candidate because I want you at that time, right? Like, I think you're perfect. I have the most leverage to say, no, I want this person in here. Let's adjust our budget a little bit. I'll make sure I'll watch my budget later on. Then once you get on, I'm not going to have that 20, 30%.
You won't have the budget because
right?
you already spent it. And they said, well, that was enough then.
Right.
You're going to have to wait a whole nother. Yeah. So it really does come down to the company has leverage at the beginning too. And it's important to know that they may not as you get into a role.
Because later on, all managers, what do we do? We control our budget, right? So year over year, we only have a set amount of budget for people that we have, right? And it could be a promotion, but let's face it, most people aren't going to see a promotion within 6 months, on the job, right? But, you brought up a really interesting point. You talked about how you knew your worth, and when you were talking to another company, they approached you. So that kind of helped you figure out your value and give you a little bit of a confidence. of, hey, I can ask, they approached me, I have nothing to lose, right?
Well, and I think being a young leader, it's always that like ageism, I feel that a little bit. I mean, I'm 35 and have been in this executive space a little bit, you know, and I'm just dipping my toe in this world of it's okay to ask for what I want, and it's okay to actually ask for more than I think I think I am actually worth.
Should.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think take one
risks.
Of the things is we just as women, I think if we spend more time understanding what it is that we're worth, then we become more comfortable asking for more. Because through research, one of the things on worth, or what's called entitlement, most men think they're above average, right? Like when men negotiate on their own behalf, they go in and say, you know what, I know this is what because when a company makes an offer, they're like, the average in the industry is this. And what do men say? Men say, well, I'm not average, right? Like, this is what I'm going to bring to the table. Here's my value, right? And what do women say? We want fair. Well, what's fair? Right. That's average, right? So, but it's interesting, through research, there are actually a couple of things women can do to counter that that lag, and one of it is comparison info. So if you actually talk to male colleagues, because women tend to talk to women, and if we're underpaid already, you're getting kind of your starting point is not quite there. But if you talk to other men who have been in the position that you are in, or who have similar position in the similar industry, women tend to think once they have that information, like the range, right? Because nobody's going to give you an exact number. We become more confident saying, oh, well, if he's getting that, I am totally entitled to more. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, women get things done. So
for sure. And, but the other thing too is performance feedback. That is another boost to our confidence that yes, we should be asking. We are not average. And that performance feedback doesn't need to be from mentor or from supervisors. It could be from mentors, or especially like if women work in cross-functional teams.
Yeah, your peers are your best.
Right. You are like, oh, you just kicked ass in this project. And I think that is super powerful. So to utilize for women when we're struggling, like, oh, do I really deserve 25% on top of average? Yes, you do.
Well, and I feel we start thinking about the other people on our teams too. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've certainly done this where I'm like, oh, I know someone on my team hasn't got an increase, so I'm going to fight for them, like you said, versus fight for myself.
And we're very good at that.
When the company, we can all go in and fight for what we're doing because we're making the company tick and we're making action, and we're genuinely caring. Hopefully we're caring about where we are. Yep. So a company needs to see that loyalty. Right. And that's valuable. And I think they do if you bring forward. But if you don't bring forward what you want or need, it's very difficult for a company to know.
Well, and my thing too, right? Like we are very successful in negotiating on our staff as well. So not just on our company's behalf. But the other thing too, like my mantra is get paid what you need and what you want, because then you're not going to sit at your office and think of, oh, am I being paid fairly? Oh, how much is the person next to me, making? Like, get that out of your head, right? Yeah. Like, focus your energy
Make it a non-issue.
So, make it a non-issue. So ask for what you deserve. And, there's, figure out, like, get comfortable knowing that you deserve more, right? Figure out what your value is. It's not that hard in this age of there's so much information and available, right? And then
I went through years of jobs of being so frustrated and so like mad about what I was making and knowing that I should be making more but not asking for it. And then when
think of the energy you wasted on that.
So much wasted energy bitching at lunch to coworkers about the same thing. And finally when I started asking for what I was worth, now I can bitch about progress and I can bitch about like what can we do to make it better, but it's not about, it's more additive to my role versus taking me away from that into a place because I'm good on the compensation. I'd love to learn a little bit more about Bright Meets Brave.
Yes.
And how that came to be. So
So brightmeetsbrave.com is a website, right, that I co-founded. And it's space really for women to go and kind of hear my thoughts. It's a non-commercial website. Hear my thoughts of what I've learned through the years of research, personal trial and error, some of the women that we've talked to, kind of trying to negotiate on their own behalf and see what works, see what doesn't, and really gain confidence in going and asking for what you want. So yeah, we welcome stories. We welcome people to reach out to us. If you are about to go into negotiations, or you feel like, I want to explore this, we love to help women to get there. Great. So that's kind of our
it's a non-fee service.
It's a non-fee service, and that was one thing that I started to learn. There's so many workshops and so many things available, but they cost a ton of money, right? And women, we know that we think of ourselves last, right? And we're like, well, we're not going to spend that $700 on a course to go find out.
2 camps for my kids,
right?
Or 3 camps.
Right, exactly. So to me, I'm like, okay, it's clear that the gender pay gap exists, but how do we shrink that? And the way to shrink it isn't, or eliminate it altogether, isn't to charge exorbitant money, amount of money for women to get that. And so, yeah, that was the premise.
Well, congratulations on all of that.
Thank you. It's just an empowerment space and a community, really. So
thank you for being there for women.
You're welcome.
And absolutely think that that's such a needed area. And
yeah. So, obviously I do it for other women. The nurture in me, but to me it's my purpose, right? So there's a little bit of self-fulfillment, or not a little, a lot of self-fulfillment in there. And when I hear stories, when we work with women who go, we prep and we work through some of the confidence issues, and then they go and ask, or even as they, as we work through kind of like, worksheet on how to get information and things. When I hear stories back on how much it has helped them and how much confidence they've gained and the results they get, like, that's a high for me, right? I'm just like,
it is so great and fabulous. And I think being direct to women in general, is a gift. And being able to share that with other women and inspire other women to speak up and stand up and know your worth and be direct about it. I'm constantly asked by other women, how are you so direct? Or by men, like, you must be from the East Coast.
Yeah,
born
right?
and raised in Minnesota. You're from Russia.
I'm from Russia, right?
You maybe can state a claim to geography making a difference in your directness.
Yes,
However, I feel like and I've said this before on other episodes, but I was a daughter to a mother who didn't speak up at all. And I think that I helped coach her, even as a young child, to speak up and know her worth. So I feel like I was born
to do
way.
this. Yeah. It's interesting. You say that. So a lot of people are like, well, how do you know, women are good at negotiations? Because I think women are great at negotiations. We negotiate on behalf of others. We have no issues. And then, but a lot of people who can relate, and I'm like, I see my 2 daughters. I can tell you, women are fantastic negotiators because where they are, they're 6 and 8. They have no issues negotiating on their own behalf.
It's logic meets life. Women are very great at logic, and women are very great at emotional tapping into life and those pieces. And I think having a combination of that, where you're not just pulling pure logic or like, it's not egotistical. It's coming from, women are coming from, this makes me better. This will make this will make my job better. This is going to make me happier here. This is going to make our customers happier. Like, women think that way.
Right.
It's not about them necessarily.
But it's okay.
It's okay to be
like, that was the other thing that we talk about. Give yourself permission that it's okay to take care of you, right? We talk about, women need to take care of themselves, and this is part of taking care of you. And that's totally fine. So
add this to your self-care regimen.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the things, that's the exercise that I started doing a while ago. Once a year, and you can do it more. I do it once a year at this point. Know what your value is. Reevaluate that, right? And kind of gauge, like, are you in the place where your value is, they're kind of appreciating it? And are you still in the place where all your needs and wants are met? And if not, go and ask, right?
When I know I have a review coming up, I don't wait until the review in the moment I'm sitting down at the table. I am on top of it a month ahead of time, providing my leaders with, I know I have that review coming up. here you go. Like, here's where I've made impact, so you know, because they don't always know. I don't think our leaders always, especially in corporate America right now, it's so lean that they don't always have insights into what we really do all day long.
And I think that's part of the value. Like, a lot of women are like, I don't know, what is my value? And it's like numbers. You know, one of the things, like, think numbers. If you're in IT, how many projects did you deliver on time, on budget? If you're in marketing, or how many leads and impressions did you, like, think numbers, right? Because that's when you go to leaders to speak up on your value. Subjective doesn't work for women, right? Because subjective things like, oh, are you a leader? That's a very masculine description, right? Like, oh, are you an innovator? Again, kind of masculine connotation to it. So think numbers. When you go and say, hey, I saved this much money, this how many projects I delivered on time.
I was recognized via email by this many teams for being collaborative.
Speak up, right? Like, and those things really count. And those are really hard to, argue. Right?
No, absolutely. Well, let's give listeners one lesson learned out of all of this that you could give people an advice to kind of move forward. I know we've sprinkled them in. But.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me is that I've learned and I give to others is you need to prepare and practice asking on your own behalf.
Awesome. And mine is ask. Period.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just ask. All someone can say is no, or
but think about
for a little bit of meat in the middle. But if you don't ask,
what if it's a yes?
You don't know, so just ask. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Insta at Bright Meets Brave, or on our site at brightmeetsbrave.com.
Awesome. Well, I know I always ask, and we don't get a ton of this, but I would love to continue the conversation on Instagram, and I know you would love to continue the conversation on your site, so please reach out, and you can find us at Blunt Cuts Podcast.